Sharpen your edge. You can feel it, even if you haven't said it out loud yet. Something in your life has to change, and deep down, you know it. You know the feeling I'm talking about. The quiet pressure that builds in your chest when you realize you're not living the way you're meant to. It sits there, heavy, following you through your day. Maybe you've been waking up tired, even on days when you should feel rested. Not because your body is exhausted, but because your spirit is. Maybe you've been replaying the same thoughts over and over, wondering how you got here. Not here as in this moment, but here as in this version of yourself you barely recognize anymore. Maybe you've been carrying responsibilities you never asked for, trying to hold your world together with your bare hands, hoping no one notices how close you are to dropping everything. Or maybe you're the person who shows up for everyone else while quietly falling apart when you're alone. You've become an expert at putting on a straight face. But whatever your story looks like, the truth is simple. You're not just tired, you're misaligned. You've been surviving on instinct instead of operating with intention. And even the strongest person can't run on survival mode forever. There comes a moment, every human reaches it, where life stops letting you coast on what used to work. Where your old patterns stop protecting you and start holding you back. Where your mind becomes louder than the world around you. Where you feel stuck but can't explain why. And that moment, that breaking point, that's where everything begins to shift. Because even though you feel frustrated, overwhelmed, confused, or burnt out, those feelings aren't the enemy. They're signals. Signals that something in your life is out of alignment. Signals that you've outgrown a chapter you're still trying to live in. Maybe you've been carrying pain you never processed. Maybe you've been chasing goals that don't even belong to you anymore. Maybe you've been tolerating things that have been draining you for years. And maybe, without even realizing it, you've been pointing at everything around you. Your job, your routines, your environment, your past, hoping that if those things changed, your life would finally feel different. But here's the truth that most people avoid. You don't need the world around you to change before you do. You need clarity. Not blame, not guilt, not punishment, just clarity. Clarity about who you've become. Clarity about what you're ignoring. Clarity about the patterns you repeat. Clarity about why you keep ending up in the same emotional place. You're not broken, you're not weak, you're not incapable. You're overwhelmed. And no one ever taught you what to do with that overwhelm. You learned how to work. You learned how to survive. You learned how to keep moving even when you were falling apart inside. But you never learned the systems that create a sense of direction, stability, and inner command. You never learned how to pull yourself out of emotional autopilot. And because of that, you keep repeating versions of the same day, hoping something external will pull you into a better life. It won't. Not because your environment doesn't matter, but because direction always begins internally. And right now, you're standing in the doorway between who you've been and who you're meant to become. The version of you that's tired is not a failure, it's a warning light. The version of you that feels lost isn't lost at all. It's trying to signal that your habits, your routines, your mindset, and your identity are no longer aligned with where your life is trying to take you. You are not behind, you are not late, you are not too far gone. You are simply at the edge of a turning point. And whether you see it or not, you already have what you need to step forward. Not because everything in your life is perfect, but because everything in your life has been preparing you to reach this moment. The pressure you feel isn't punishment, it's potential. It's your life trying to get your attention. It's your mind telling you that something needs to shift. And before we move any further, you need to hear this clearly. You are not the sum of your mistakes. You are not defined by the moments you broke. You are not trapped in your past or your patterns. You're human. And humans evolve. Every day you wake up, you're handed another chance to write a different story. Not a perfect story, a stronger one. And that story begins with this realization. You are allowed to outgrow the life you built when you didn't know better. You are allowed to outgrow the patterns you developed when you were in survival mode. You are allowed to step forward, even if you don't have everything figured out yet. Right now, you're not being asked to be perfect. You're not being asked to have all the answers. You're being asked to wake up to the truth. You deserve a life that feels intentional, not accidental. And the very fact that you're here proves that you're ready to start building it. This is the moment where everything begins to change. Not because your life magically transforms, but because you're finally ready to see yourself clearly. The moment you begin to see yourself clearly, the entire landscape of your life shifts. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but in a way that feels like the first deep breath you've taken in years. Because once you understand that your mind has been running on patterns you never chose, you start realizing just how much of your life has been driven by survival, not strategy. You weren't weak, you were overloaded. You weren't lazy, you were unfocused. You weren't broken, you were carrying weight alone that should have been shared. And each of these misunderstandings created a version of you that judged yourself too harshly and believed too little in your own capability. That's why nothing felt like progress, because you were fighting battles you didn't know how to put down. But now you're seeing the truth behind the noise. And with that truth comes a quiet shift inside you, something subtle but undeniable. You start to recognize that the person you've been isn't the person you're destined to remain. You start noticing that every reaction, every habit, every moment you shut down wasn't weakness. It was a system trying to protect you, the only way it knew how. Your mind learned to brace for impact long before it learned to build a foundation. And you've been living inside that tension ever since. But here's the part that most people never get to understand. You are not stuck because you lack potential. You're stuck because your systems were built for a version of life you've already outgrown. You built routines for stress, not growth. You built habits to endure, not to elevate. You built ways of thinking that kept you alive, but not fulfilled. And the moment you recognize this, your entire identity begins to shift. Because once you understand why you think the way you do, the way forward becomes clearer. Instead of blaming yourself, you start evaluating your patterns. Instead of collapsing under pressure, you start noticing where you lose control. Instead of repeating the same mistakes, you start seeing the early signs. That's not motivation, that's awareness. And awareness is the foundation of transformation. This is where you begin to understand that accountability isn't about fault, it's about power. Because while you may not have chosen the things that shaped you, you get to choose what shapes you next. You don't have to replay the same story. You don't have to repeat the same emotional loops. You don't have to live as the person you learned to be when you were just trying to survive. You can build something different. You can build something intentional. You can build something that actually reflects who you are, not who you had to be. And that requires a shift in how you see yourself. You are not fragile. You are not a burden. You are not someone who needs to wait for life to become easier before you start living. You are someone who has already endured storms that would have broken other people. You are someone who has carried responsibilities without the tools to handle them. You are someone who still wakes up and tries, even on days when trying feels pointless. That is not weakness. That is resilience you never learned to recognize. So the shift begins here. You stop seeing yourself as the problem and start seeing yourself as the solution. You stop assuming everything around you must change before you do. You stop waiting for circumstances to make your life easier. You stop telling yourself that you'll take action once everything feels perfect. Perfection is not coming, but clarity is. And clarity leads to direction. Direction leads to structure. Structure leads to progress. Progress leads to confidence. Confidence leads to identity. And identity, that's where your life actually begins to change. Because the truth is this, once you shift the way you understand yourself, every decision you make afterward becomes more powerful. You stop tolerating things that drain you. You stop repeating patterns that sabotage you. You stop shrinking yourself to avoid conflict or discomfort. You start thinking like someone who is capable, even if you don't feel capable yet. You start moving like someone who's building something meaningful. You start becoming someone you can trust. And that's the beginning of real transformation, the kind that doesn't fade after a good day or collapse after a bad one. It's the kind that stays, the kind you build, the kind that grows with you. This is the shift you've been needing. This is the shift you've been avoiding. And this is the shift that will change everything that comes next. Sharpen your edge. There comes a moment in every rebuilding process where clarity turns into responsibility. Not the kind that weighs you down, but the kind that lifts your chin and makes you realize that your next chapter depends on the decisions you make from here. Because once you wake up to who you really are, once you understand why you felt the way you felt, and once you shift the way you see yourself, there's only one thing left: rising into the life you were meant to live. Not the life you settled for, not the life you survived, the life you were built for. And rising doesn't begin with a grand gesture or a perfect plan. It begins with one decision. You stop waiting for the world to fix itself before you start moving forward. You stop telling yourself that tomorrow will feel easier. You stop delaying your own growth because you're afraid of failing in the process. You stop believing the lie that you need to have everything figured out before you take your first step. You don't rise because life gets lighter. You rise because you get stronger. And strength doesn't always look like confidence. Sometimes it looks like taking action while your hands still shake. Sometimes it looks like showing up even when your mind is still full of doubt. Sometimes it looks like choosing discipline because your emotions can't be trusted yet. Rising is not about becoming someone new. It's about returning to the version of yourself you were always supposed to be. The version of you that doesn't break when pressure hits. The version of you that doesn't fold when things get complicated. The version of you that doesn't retreat when life demands more from you. Because the truth is this: pressure doesn't destroy you. It reveals you. And what it reveals is someone far more capable than you've allowed yourself to believe. You've carried burdens alone for so long that you forgot what you're actually built from. You've spent years in survival mode without realizing that survival mode is proof of your resilience, not evidence of your weakness. You've endured seasons that should have taken you out, yet here you are, bruised maybe, but not beaten. People don't rise because they feel ready. They rise because they refuse to keep living the same story. This is the part where you stop shrinking to fit old patterns. This is the part where you stop letting your past set the limits for your future. This is the part where you stop letting fear write the script for your life. The rise begins when you decide your story deserves a different ending. And a different ending starts with building systems strong enough to carry you where motivation never could. Systems that support your progress, even on the days when your emotions try to pull you backward. Systems that reinforce your decisions when doubt tries to creep back in. Systems that remind you who you're becoming every time you feel yourself slipping into who you used to be. Discipline is not punishment, it's structure. Structure is not restriction, it's freedom. And freedom is not found in avoiding responsibility, it's found in owning it. You rise by taking ownership of your direction. You rise by choosing actions that align with your identity instead of your impulses. You rise by building habits that make success unavoidable, even when you don't feel strong. And the more you rise, the more your world shifts around you. Your relationships change, your standards change, your reactions change, your tolerance for chaos, drama, and excuses disappears. Your focus sharpens, your confidence grows. Not because everything is easy, but because you're no longer running from the parts of yourself that used to scare you. You rise by accepting that the old you got you this far, and the new you will take you the rest of the way. Because the version of you who stayed silent to keep the peace is gone. The version of you who tolerated things that drained your spirit is gone. The version of you who thought strength meant hiding your struggles is gone. This new version understands that rising is not a moment. It's a decision you make every single day. Some days it will be subtle. Some days it will be brutal. Some days you'll feel on top of the world. Other days you'll feel like you're taking steps backward. But every day counts. Every choice counts. Every moment you decide to move instead of stall counts. And rising becomes inevitable when you finally understand this truth. No one is coming to save you because you were never meant to be rescued. You were meant to rise, not quietly, not slowly, not apologetically, but deliberately, with intention, with clarity, with discipline, with a sense of purpose that does not shrink when life gets loud. You rise because you're done letting your potential go unused. You rise because you're tired of living a life that doesn't reflect who you are inside. You rise because you've realized that no one can carry your mission for you. And as you rise, something incredible happens. Your world begins to shape itself around your new momentum. Opportunities appear. Your perspective sharpens. The right people gravitate towards you. The wrong people fade away. Your goals become clearer. Your path becomes more defined. And soon, the life that once felt out of reach begins to feel inevitable. Not because it was handed to you, but because you built it, brick by brick, habit by habit, day by day, decision by decision. This is where everything changes, not because life suddenly became easier, but because you became intentional, aligned, unshakable. You are rising not for the world, not for the image, not for the applause, but for the future you refuse to let slip away. This is where it all begins.